I'm Jen, and welcome to Christian Fire Poppy. Happy Valentine's Day today, and this is my son Chris, and we have some exciting news to share. So today, the prophet announced that the Salt Lake Temple open house will begin in 2027. So from April to October 2027, the Salt Lake Temple open house will span 6 months. Now, this was very exciting news. I have been waiting to hear when the Salt Lake Temple would be opening. And so today was a day of great news. And actually 7 years ago from today, I got some of the best news of my life. So 7 years ago, I found out that I was having a little boy. This little boy, I have 5 kids and I had 4 daughters in a row. And my 5th child, I was really hoping to have a boy because I just wanted the experience. I thought it'd be really amazing and fun to just have the experience to be the mother of a little boy. And so we got the blood test and they said, okay, we'll call you sometime within this week. And I didn't know what day or time they would call, and it landed on Valentine's Day. So Valentine's Day, I found out that I was having a little boy, and I was so excited. So in the rest of this video, I'm excited to share with you, there are some pretty exciting things that have happened on Valentine's Day in church history, and today is just another marker of one of those days. So I also have a few connections that tie these dates into the scriptures in the book of Daniel, so let's take a look at that. Thanks. All right, what a cutie, right? I told him if he came on the video with me, he could have a Valentine's Day cookie. And you can see my lipstick right here. I snuck a little kiss. But I am so excited about the Salt Lake Temple news. I will admit I'm a little bit disappointed because it's further out than I had hoped, further out than I had expected. So we have a little bit more of a wait. But let's dive into February 14th, Valentine's Day in church history. I find it fascinating that the prophet made the announcement today, and he immediately connected it to February 14th, 1853, when the Salt Lake Temple groundbreaking took place. So if you go onto Instagram or Facebook, you can see President Nelson's post, and he gave this announcement today. So church history events landing on Valentine's Day. First of all, we have February 14th, 1835 in Kirtland, Ohio. Joseph Smith organized the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. So that is a huge event in church history, and that was on Valentine's Day. And then February 14th, 1853, I kind of like this number juxtaposition here, 1835 and 1853. The Salt Lake Temple groundbreaking took place. President Brigham Young presided over the ceremony, officially marking the beginning of the temple's construction. During the event, Heber C. Kimball, first counselor in the first presidency, placed the cornerstone, and Young prophesied that the temple would stand through the millennium. I have some interesting points that I will come back to about this quote. But first of all, let's take a look at February 14th of last year. So in 2024, February 13th and 14th were of significance because on the 13th, we had the Salt Lake Temple topping out ceremony. Now you can see in this LDS Living article, the Salt Lake Temple renovation team held a topping out ceremony with an estimated 800 construction team members gathered for the building tradition of the topping out ceremony. Now, I have to say, something that has just stuck out to me numbers-wise is that the Salt Lake Temple began construction and renovation in 2019. We now know it will be finished in 2027, so that is an 8-year span. The number 8 has to do with new beginnings, rebirth, and the millennium. So I love this number 800 here, and I love that this process is going to be completed in 8 years. That has symbolic meaning as I understand it, and just a traditional symbolic understanding of the number 8. So we have February 13th, and then February 14th, that was Ash Wednesday. and that is the 40-day count until Easter. So it was pretty interesting that on February 13th, this was the day that the Salt Lake Temple Spire milestone event occurred. It was also a big milestone event for the Notre Dame Cathedral. So, kind of interesting that these big symbolic buildings for the Catholic Church and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Temple both had their spire ceremonies on the exact same day. What are the odds? So, if you've seen my previous videos, I found this celestial asteroid art on, now this could be February 13th or 14th. These minor planets, as they're called, or asteroids, don't move very much within one day. So, looking at February 14th on 2024, this was this Spire milestone day. And if you go to, it's an astronomy program. So, if you look at the actual official minor planet, also known as asteroid names, you have this interesting celestial art where if you look here, this shape is like a temple or tabernacle with a spire. And at the top of it, you have Francis. This is a minor planet that was named after Pope Francis. And we know the Catholic Cathedral had its Spire event on that day, and we also had this name, Nelson Eric and Russell Marks. We have Russell, Nelson, Pope Francis, the minor planet named Temple, the minor planet named Israel, and even a minor planet named America here in this area. And you might think, well, that why is that a temple or a tabernacle? This is just something that has stood out to me ever since that day with the spire ceremonies of both of those religions. And you can see here on the day that Israel was attacked, that was October 7th, 2023. I've seen this pattern of the name of asteroids and minor planets at the top of these spire areas on significant days. They seem to match the theme of what happens depicting the event of the day. So this was, a big clash between Iran backed Hamas attacking Israel, and we have the minor planet named Iran Manesh. Manesh means man. So the men of Iran at the top of the tabernacle on the day that Israel was attacked. Here we have, again, what I just showed you with the Spire Day. And right here, the day the Kirtland Temple is acquired and opens, you have a minor planet named Yeshua at the top of the spire. We know that the Greek name for Jesus is Yeshua. We have the Feast of Trumpets Hebrew Holy Day. We've talked a lot about this in previous videos, but Miles Davis, so on the Feast of Trumpets Day, this was the seventh Feast of Trumpets year, and the name Miles Davis, he is a famous trumpet player. It was named after this trumpet player, but that minor planet name was at the top of the spire on that Hebrew Holy Day. And the day that Joseph Smith and Emma received the Book of Mormon, that was September 22nd, 1827. Here at the Spire, we have the name Emma because Joseph Smith was told that he was to bring the correct person in order to get the Book of Mormon. He had showed up hoping to receive the Book of Mormon years before that, bringing different people, and it was not until he brought his wife Emma that he received the Book of Mormon, and we have the word archangel here. So we have the angel Moroni who presented it to them. We know that this patriarchal order that we believe in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the man is not without the woman, and the woman is not without the man. That is part of the beauty of the temple. And why are we looking at this art in the sky? Well, I like to look at the heavens in a symbolic way, an artistic way, a right-brained manner. And it brings me joy. It's kind of a worshipful process for me. So you don't have to see anything in it. It's, as I said, symbols are kind of a blend of your own lens and your beliefs and what you see, combined with actual names and facts that are happening on that day. So it's a little bit of miracle, a little bit of artistry. I love how Carl D. Hurst at this last general conference said, think celestial literally. He said, can you take a step back from whatever is in front of you until you are literally thinking celestial because you are looking at the stars and remembering worlds without number and through them, their creator? So we know the temple itself is a symbol. The temple itself was to be a symbol, said Wilford Woodruff, with the completion of the temple in Salt Lake City, whose very appearance is a symbol of purity and peace, whose existence is a witness of the favor and power of God. The work of temple building by the saints does not cease. I also love how on the Salt Lake Temple, there's actually a depiction of the Big Dipper. There are a lot of stars on temples. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So, spire symbolism. Just to add on a little bit of thought, since we were talking about the coincidence of the spires being placed on the same day, we know that Brigham Young made it clear that of the six spires on the temple, the Salt Lake Temple, that is, the three on the east represent the first presidency and the Melchizedek priesthood. The three spires on the west, which are slightly lower, represent the presiding bishopric and the Aaronic priesthood. So, how fitting that we should have the spire topping day on the eve of Valentine's Day last year. And that was, as we saw before, the day that the Quorum of the 12 Apostles were called in history. So I wanted to talk about these dates and when the prophet has announced that the temple will be opening. We know it is a 6-month time frame, and there's a date of interest that is connected to the scriptures within that time frame that I have been talking about for the last year and a half. So this slide I showed quite a while ago, and I just wanted to share these thoughts. This is just some guesswork on my part, so don't put too much stuff. This comes with a big grain of salt. This is just something to watch. This is not something to get too attached to or to get too I'm not very certain about this. So we'll just say this is a possibility. Possibility being key. I do not know if anything will happen on this date, but I like to look at possibilities and just to watch dates. It's interesting to me and it keeps things fun. So the scriptures in Daniel 12, it talks about the sign of the setup of the abomination of desolation on October 7th. And I'm wondering if this is pointing to June 3rd, 2027. Now, let me explain why that is. So, the Daniel 1290 day count lands on October 7th, 2023. We were watching this previously, and that, in fact, was the day that Israel was attacked. That was a surprise, and I guess this is why I continue to watch these things, because sometimes you get it right, a lot of times it's not right, but it is fun to just keep an eye on. So, what does Daniel 12 say? In Daniel 12:11, it says, "And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away." Now, to me, that sounds like the temple daily sacrifice that was taken away on March 26, 2020, when all the temples closed worldwide. So it says that the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. So if you add 1290 days to March 6th, that was October 7th, 2023, the day that Israel was attacked. And now the scripture right after that, it also talks about 1,335 days. It says, "Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 and 30 days." So I remember back then we were wondering if, the question is, where do you start counting the 1,335 days, right? It's not super clear. So there's some, question about when to start that count. I remember thinking, maybe it's just a couple of months after this, and, nothing too big happened on the day, some interesting foreshadowing perhaps. But if you count 1,335 days from October 7th, that lands on June 3rd, 2027. So I find this interesting to watch because this date is within the window of time that the prophet has just announced that the Salt Lake Temple will be open to the public. And it is also the official Jerusalem Day holiday. And so, right after this verse, in verse 13, it says, "But go thou thy way till the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot." That makes me think of a temple lot at the end of days. So, I mean, within this time frame, we will be able to stand in the temple lot of the Salt Lake Temple. And we're told Brigham Young prophesied that Salt Lake Temple would stand through the millennium. So, a symbol of standing in holy places to get through the end of days events. That's what comes to my mind. Those are the connections that I make. And I don't know, you have to continue hearing me out because these dates are just compelling and interesting. So in Daniel 8:14, it also talks about 2,300 days until the sanctuary cleansed. So we have this connection to this same time frame. So in verse 13, it says, Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? And he said unto me, Unto 2,300 days, and then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. So again, we have a connection to this time frame of the daily sacrifice ceasing and the desolation. And if you think about everything being shut down as a time where things were, trodden down and going through trials, and this number of 2,300. So again, if we're looking at if we count backwards 2,300 days from this June 3rd, 2027, that's Jerusalem Day, and that was the day we got from the 1335 count. And so 2,300 days back from that, I found it fascinating that that was Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2021. Now, that wasn't just any Valentine's Day, that was the first Valentine's Day where all of the temples were shut down worldwide. So, Day of Love, a day that symbolizes weddings and marriage, and to have on that day all the temples worldwide shut down. That's a compelling day in my mind. So, again, the reason we were looking at June 3rd, 2027, because that was 1335. That was that Daniel day count number from October 7th, 2023. So, you're going to have to think a little bit deeply to kind of understand what I'm saying. Study these scriptures in Daniel. So 2,300 days has to do with this topic of the sanctuary being cleansed. That makes me think of the temple personally. So 2,300 days from the first Valentine's Day that temples were closed worldwide to Jerusalem Day during the Salt Lake City Temple open house time. So it's kind of compelling. And something else that happened on this February 14th, 2021. Now, I could not find any other Valentine's Days where the church had any kind of event, but on this date, we had Elder Jeffrey R. Holland of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. He held a worldwide meeting and he answered questions about dating, marriage, and other issues in a devotional for young single adults. So that's right on point with the temple topic, again, for thinking about marriage and eternal families. Kind of an interesting event. So, looking at June 3rd, 2027, that is Jerusalem Day. So, if you don't know what Jerusalem Day is, it is a national holiday in Israel that celebrates the reunification of Jerusalem beginning in 1967. So, June 3rd, 2027 will be the 60th anniversary of Jerusalem Day. Now, this commemorates the liberation of East Jerusalem from Jordanian rule. It also marks the regaining of access to the Western Wall by the Jewish people. Now, the people celebrate it with state ceremonies, memorial services, a flag flying parade called the Dance of Flags. And the reason they celebrate is it symbolizes the Jewish people's continued connection to Jerusalem, and it recognizes the miracles and events that led to the reunification of Jerusalem. So you have this theme of gathering. We know that our prophet, President Nelson, is focusing on the gathering of Israel at this time. So again, coming back to this topic of 2,300 days until the sanctuary being cleansed. Another just interesting count if we look at 2,300 days and we add that to March 18th, 2020. Now, March 18th, 2020 was the day the earthquake shook the trumpet from the Salt Lake Temple and Angel Moroni dropped his temple to the ground. And there's another scripture that seems to talk about that. I didn't include it in the slide, but I've talked about it previously. And if you count 2,300 days from that event, that lands on July 4th, 2026. And that is the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. So that is also the final day. We know that President Trump is making a big day, calling it a world holiday, inviting everybody to come to America during this time. And that ends on the 4th of July, 2026, so the 250th anniversary of America. So again, I don't know if these 2,300 days are just coincidences. I don't know if it means something. It may or may not be related. I mean, at its best, it would be the fulfillment of this, but maybe in kind of a middle fulfillment, it could be a parallel or a foreshadowing reminder of this type of thing. And I don't know, it's just pretty interesting that 2,300 days from March 18th, when the trumpet dropped on the top of the Salt Lake Temple, lands on the 4th of July, 2026, the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. So, in President Nelson's address during the October 2024 General Conference, President Russell M. Nelson emphasized the importance of preparing for the second coming of Jesus Christ, whom he referred to as the millennial Messiah. He called upon members to rededicate their lives to the Savior, assist in gathering scattered Israel, and prepare the world for the Lord's return. So I told you I would come back to this concept of the millennial Messiah because it really ties into this announcement about the Salt Lake Temple. So Brigham Young, he testified of the Salt Lake Temple standing in the millennium. So he prophesied this, and at the Salt Lake Temple groundbreaking ceremony on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 1853, Brigham Young made a powerful prophecy about the temple's future. He declared, "I want to see the temple built in a manner that will endure through the millennium. This is not the only temple we shall build. There will be hundreds of them built and dedicated to the Lord. We should build a temple that will last through the millennium." And then our prophet today reaffirms Brigham Young's prophecy. So when President Nelson announced that we would be renovating the temple in April 2019, he announced the extensive Salt Lake Temple renovation, reinforcing the idea that the temple will stand through millennium. This is what he says. "We promise that you will love the results. They will emphasize and highlight the life, ministry, and mission of Jesus Christ and his desire to bless every nation, kindred, tongue, and people. This temple will stand for the millennium." So he emphasizes that the renovations will prepare the Salt Lake Temple to endure in the millennium. The current seismic upgrades, restoration of original craftsmanship, and modern reinforcement techniques are fulfilling Brigham Young's 1853 prophecy. So both leaders, nearly, not quite, but close to 170 years apart, testified of the Salt Lake Temple's millennial purpose, reinforcing its sacred and enduring role in God's plan. So, just for history's sake, President Nelson, he hinted at the temple renovations in General Conference April 7th, 2019. He said, "In the coming years, we will be removing and replacing the aging mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems. We will strengthen the temple against seismic events." And then on April 19th, 2019 was the official announcement of renovations, and the temple was closed for renovation on December 29th, 2019. So this idea of reinforcing the temple, restoring and rebuilding the foundation all the way up to the top of the spires, we have heard the prophet and the apostles talk about this and use it as an analogy for our own lives. So we know that the temple is a symbol. We can also see how they are using this reconstruction and renovation as a symbol for us to encourage us to reinforce our foundations and to prepare ourselves for any possible seismic events in the future. All right, so I wanted to show you really quickly here on Stellarium. This is an official astronomy program where you can see where the planets asteroids, minor planets are according to the date and time. So if you go to the bottom right-hand corner, you can select the date. This is February 14th, 2024. And here we're looking at this temporal or tabernacle shape right here. And you can see the minor planet named Russell Mark here on the left. If we look up the name Nelson Eric, so if you think of President Nelson, the name Eric actually means world leader. You see the name Russell Nelson flanking this temple tabernacle. And then at the top, you have a minor planet that is named after Pope Francis, right at the top of the spire. And I find that interesting because these names, as far as I see it, seem to sometimes depict big events happening on the very day. And we know that the Catholic Church is the largest church in the United States of America. And if we look at the minor planet named America, here it is within this tabernacle structure on that day. So pretty interesting. We know that there most definitely will be challenges leading up to the second coming of Jesus Christ. And part of that preparation is to prepare ourselves spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and temporally. So thank you for joining with me today. Bloom with me. Fire poppies are known for mitigating mudslides after fires. So a Zion field of many fire poppies will reduce erosion after fires and chaos leading to Christ's coming. Join us for more fiery passion and preparedness as we fly into the second coming of Jesus Christ.